The second part of chapter 3 that we will be starting today also has to do with controlling when some code gets executed. But what we're going to look at now is writing loops. And there are 3 ways of writing loops that we will learn in this part of the chapter. So the 2 sections from the textbook that you can refer to are 3.3 and 3.4. So basically, we have something called the while statement. The while statement, what it does, it lets us repeat some code. So sometimes you want to do something many times. For example, if I want to calculate your final grade as a student, I have to go to the first student and grab all their classwork grades, multiply it by the weighted, like the percent, like the 15%, go grab all your programming assignment grades, your exam grades, and do the calculation, the weighted average of all that. I have to do that for student 1. And then if that calculation took 10 lines of code, I have to go to student 2 and repeat those 10 lines of calculation for student 2. And then I have to do them for student 3 and student 4. So if every student takes 10 lines and I have 20 students, am I going to type 200 lines? Probably not. So the purpose of the while loop that we're going to learn and the other statements that we're going to learn in this part of the chapter is how do you write code one time and use it several times. And so basically what you do is you have a block of statements that you want to execute, for example, the calculation of the grade, and you wrap that inside a while condition, a while statement. The while statement, just like the if statement, takes a condition or a statement that resolves to true or false, evaluates to true or false. So this condition is a Boolean expression. And what's going to happen is that at the beginning, the first thing that's going to happen is that condition is going to get checked. So it's going to be kind of like an if statement. If this condition is true, it's going to go and do the statements inside. So it's going to come and do the block of statements inside. But instead of an if statement where after the execution of those statements happen, the code continues after, what's going to happen is that the code is going to go back and check the condition again. So after those statements are executed, the code is going to loop around and come and check this condition around. That's why it's not an if statement. It doesn't say if this condition is true, do these. It says while this condition is true, do these. So as long as the condition is true, you're going to keep doing the block of statements. So let's look at an example of how you do it. And the while statement, there are a lot of use cases. So what we're going to do today is take a few use cases and try playing with them and getting used to using them. So here we have a count variable, that's 1. And the code is saying while count is less than or equal to 5, I'm going to print I love Java, and then I'm going to increment count. And so what I want to do is I want to see what is actually happening inside RAM when this code is getting run. So we start off, we have a variable called count. So in RAM, we have a variable called count, and it's getting initialized to the value of 1. Okay, so that's the first thing that's going to happen. Now we have a test. It says while count is less than or equal to 5. So this is a test. It's going to ask, is count less than or equal to 5? Is 1 less than or equal to 5? And the answer is yes. So it's going to do the system.out.println I love Java. So it's going to come here, and this is our output, and it's going to print I love Java. And then the next statement is really, really important. It says count plus plus. It's going to increment count. So count now, instead of being 1, it is 2. Okay, we're done with the first iteration of the loop. We say every time we go into the loop and do the statements, we say this is an iteration of the loop. So we're done with the first iteration of the loop. We're going to go back and check. Is count less than or equal to 5? And 2 is less than or equal to 5. The condition is still true. We're going to go in and say print I love Java. So we're going to print I love Java. And then we're going to say count plus plus. So now our count, instead of 2, it becomes 3. We go and check again. 3 less than or equal to 5? Yes. Print and increment. So we're going to print it again, and we're going to increment it again. And then we go and check 4 less than or equal to 5. Yes. Print and count plus plus. So now the 4 becomes a 5. Let me check again. Is 5 less than or equal to 5? And the answer is yes, because there's an equal sign. 5 is equal to 5. So we're going to go print again and increment 5, make it 6. And now we go and check, is 6 less than or equal to 5? And the answer is no. So we just drop out of the loop, and whatever code is underneath the loop would get executed. So what was the purpose of this loop? The purpose of this loop was to print the statement 5 times. Okay, so we had a variable count that was helping us count how many times we are doing the printing. This variable, notice that we started out the variable before the loop. We started out with 1. We are checking the variable. This is the variable we're testing on. And this variable, we are changing it inside the loop. And so this variable that we initialize, we test on, and we update is called the control variable. It is the variable that is controlling the loop. Okay, now let's look at a few other examples before we continue. Let's look at this code. Can you look at this code and tell me what is wrong? And feel free to pause the video, figure out what's wrong, and then resume it. So what's wrong with this piece of code is that we have count as 1. We're checking if it's less than or equal to 5, and we're printing. We are missing updating this count variable. Count will always remain 1. We will keep printing Java forever because there is nothing that's going to make this test eventually fail. Count is 1. 1 is less than or equal to 5, print Java. 1 less than or equal to 5, print Java. 1 less than or equal to 5, print Java. It's never changing. So this piece of code is missing the update statement. And so we say this is going to give us an infinite loop, a loop that will never end. If I was to copy and paste this code into my NetBeans, I will see Java, 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 Java printed forever until the machine runs out of RAM space. Okay. Now let's look at this line of code. Can you pause the video and figure out what's wrong with it? So what's wrong with this statement is that here we're starting our count as 1. After we print Java, we're making count become 1 less. So count is going to become 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. It will always remain less than or equal to 5. We are never going to reach 5 because from 1 to get to 5, we have to keep adding. And we're not adding, we're subtracting. So count is going to always remain less than or equal to 5. So here we have an update, but we're updating wrong. Okay, so that is our problem. Our test will never get reached. So again, we will get into an infinite loop. Let's look at this code. Count is 1. We have our test. We're updating by adding 1. But again, we have a problem. 2, count is going to become 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, actually, this code, count is 1. Is this code going to ever run? 1 greater than or equal to 5? No. So this one, we're testing wrong. So this code, we were not going to actually run. So this is not going to give us an infinite loop. It's going to give us a loop that never runs. Okay. So if we forget to update the control variable or update it wrong or test wrong, we might run into an infinite loop, a loop that never ends. So the 3 most important parts of a loop, or the 3 parts of a loop that you will need to start thinking about when you write any loop, you have to ask yourself, what is my starting point? What is the first number I want to do something for? And this is called our initialization. We have a variable, we initialize it to something. We are going to have our test that we're going to put next to the word while, and as long as this test is true, our loop will keep continuing forever. We'll keep continuing. And then finally, we need to make sure we have an update inside of our loop so that this test, this control variable that we initialized and we're testing on eventually gets updated, and that the test eventually fails and gives us a false and the loop ends.